Hey, good afternoon, John Donovan.
Hi, Marty.
Good to see you, Marty Keller here. Um, we're really excited to welcome listeners, especially new listeners, to this Intentional Living podcast. This
Yeah.
is a podcast in which we learn how to break patterns of behavior that we have dealt with that we say we don't want, and they keep showing up anyway. John's developed a process we call the accountability tree, which helps us uncover uh, subconscious, that is, things we can't see, subconscious obstacles to what we want, and then create conscious intentions to create the kind of life that we really do want.
Mhm.
Um, so, John, you've got some specifics about that for us.
Yeah, and one of the things I found myself in was patterns of behavior that I didn't want. I don't know if you just said that, but um, mine were specifically drinking and or what I call workaholic or raging. And I have three questions that I'm going to ask everybody in the group, and then I'm going to explain to you why you answered the way you answered these questions. And the first question is, have you ever hurt somebody you loved, regretted it, and then found yourself doing it again, usually in the same way? Second question, have you ever been in an argument with somebody and then in the middle of the argument found that you're on the wrong side of the argument and found yourself continuing with your argument in spite of knowing you were wrong? The third question, have you ever been in a situation where you knew what you're about to do you would regret, and you even heard a little voice in your head saying, "Oh, no, don't do that," and you found that you couldn't or wouldn't stop that behavior? And my answer to those questions were yes, yes, and yes. And this is the dilemma I found myself in. Patterns of behavior. For me, it was alcoholism. I don't want to drink, or could have been like a modification of I don't want to drink so much. And then I knew what I wanted to do, and I found myself back in that pattern, whether it was workaholic, I don't need to work this much, and then found myself in that pattern of behavior. Um, the information in the intentional living or accountability tree process that we go over every podcast helped me break that pattern, helped me to be able to answer these questions in a negative. Like if I know I hurt somebody and I say I don't want to do it again, I'm able to follow through with my word, and how that process of healing or shifting takes place. So, um,
Well, that's great. And to let listeners know, John's been working on this process for over a quarter of a century. And
mhm.
I've been following this work with you for almost 15 years now, and I think we both can tell you that this process works. It's not easy because we're working on changing deeply seated patterns of behavior that have an addictive energy to them. In other words,
Mhm.
my experience is those patterns of behavior didn't want to change.
Right.
They're connected to our childhood trauma. We're connected to the experience of a little kid, in this case, little Marty, who was finding himself not safe in emotionally violent or emotionally difficult environment, and so he created a way to be safe. And that way to be safe is something that no longer served me as an adult, but it kept manifesting the same behaviors over and over and over again because little Marty was determined to stay safe. Once he figured out a way to do it, he's going to do it.
Mhm.
And that's all subconscious. That I didn't know any of that until I started doing this work. And
Right.
the beauty of the accountability process is the way it helps us look at the subconscious. It helped open the door for me to see those things about myself and not just see them intellectually, but actually feel them in my body so that I could create something different. I could actually use these things that felt like obstacles and turn them into gifts. And that's the process that you've developed here. And so, what I'd like you to do, we're gonna try a new format here based on feedback that we've gotten from some loyal listeners. That a half hour instead of an hour. Um, duration makes more sense. So we're going to try spend the next 25 minutes or so. John's going to just kind of take us through the basics, as if this is a meeting that we are in together. And the last thing I'll say before I turn it back over to you is that we do this work in meetings, we do this work in group, because there's something about the group energy that's healing.
Yeah.
As John likes to say, we got our traumas in a social situation, our families, and we can get healing in a social situation. So I'd like to invite you to share with us, to sort of run us through the basics.
Okay. So I began doing this work in Sacramento County Jail. So the assumption was that everybody in the class was on the same page. And most of the men coming to the class, well, some of the men, most of the men, I'm not really sure, were in the class based on some type of external motivation. Or they're in jail. If they went to the class, they would not have to be in the dorm, which was a dangerous place to be. So they would opt to come to the class. And it was working with violent offenders and addicts. And they really didn't know the questions to ask. They thought they were coming to the class for me to tell them how to be so that they could be different. And based on my experience, people telling me how to be, or me offering advice to other people, that doesn't work. So to get their attention, instead of starting a lecture or going through some coursework, I told them that I'm not here to change you. I'm here to listen to what you want and then assist you to move through the obstacles that are in your way so that you can have what it is you want. So it was not talking about what not to do. It was opening the options about what is possible, what do they want, and then talking about what's keeping them from simply having what they want. So those three questions I asked, when I get that I'm in a pattern of behavior that I don't want, and I can't seem to break that pattern of behavior, what I used to think was there's something wrong with me. Or I use some type of rationalization to justify what it was I was doing. Um, so when people come to class or somebody comes to a meeting in the community, they may not know exactly what the material is about. So to explain this in one sitting, or I want to even say in a rational way, is next to impossible. It takes time to break through what we're going to talk about, the obstacles. It takes time to break through the conditioning, or the, I want to call it paradigm, that operates and runs your life. So the first question I ask people when they come to the group, and if you've gone to the group multiple times, is I ask them, what do you want that you don't have? And then I talk about the obstacles, what's standing in your way. So I'm going to do that now and ask anybody who's listening to this, what do you want that you don't have? And I can even give you mine. What I want that I don't have is a deeper awareness of myself as a human being. And when you identify, I found in my own experience, when I identify something I want, it creates a focus, which means I hear differently, and I see things differently based on that focus. It like taps into my desire center, which opens something up in me to take in new information. Okay. So I ask people what they want. We get answers like inner peace, peace of mind, confidence, self-confidence, self-compassion, feeling at ease in my own body. And now I'm going to talk about the obstacles. The obstacles, and I'll just go through them briefly, are your experiences or my experiences from conception to the present moment. My experiences, you can see my cursor down here, this iceberg, my total experience is held in my memory. 1/10 of it in my conscious available memory. 9/10 is held in my, or relegated to the subconscious. And I use that word relegated purposefully because it's not just people looking for help, that this is the way it is. Every human being on the planet is built this way so that we can complete tasks, food, shelter, clothing. So my total experience is 9/10 of it has been relegated to the subconscious. Albeit subconscious, it is still active when I'm faced with an environment, when I'm in a perception or a belief or a situation. So I have total access to my total memory. And that's a good thing because in my memory, I'm holding things that were uncomfortable, things that were dangerous, things that were awkward, things that were embarrassing. And yet I don't have the capacity to think about all that time. So it's relegated to my subconscious. So this total experience feeds information to my decision-making process, which I'm calling reticular activating system, alert system, which is hooked into the survival mechanism, fight, flight, freeze, please. And I find myself in a pattern of behavior based on my experiences. And then the choices I made based on those experiences, albeit 9/10 of it, I wasn't aware that were motivating. So that's the
Quick,
first obstacle. Go
quick
ahead.
question.
Yeah.
So the reticular activating system is actually, if I understand it rightly, it's actually part of our brain. It's a part of our neurological system. This isn't just
Yeah.
some kind of disembodied thought pattern. This is actually structured in our
Yeah.
physiology.
Yes. Yes, it's a net-like group of cells that connect the brainstem, which is what we call the reptilian brain, the instinct brain, and it's also hooked in and connects it to the mammalian brain, which is the emotional processor, the amygdala, and a couple of other things. I don't know all the names. So that we can respond to a danger, a deadly danger, in an instant instead of having to go through each that lion with a scar on his face is the most dangerous. It's like, no, lion, boom, gone. And this enables us to survive. That's the alert mechanism, reticular activating system. It's also a filtering system. And we'll get into that later. But it's the alert system that puts us in the survival mode based on danger, perceived danger. Yeah. And I suggest people to Google it. Google reticular, because it's much more than what I'm talking about. It's a complex system built into, and not just people who are looking for help. Everybody on the planet has this. It's like, and this is what when we talk about people gravitating mostly to the negative, the answer is yes, we do, because it's important to our survival. It's not because we're bad people, but we need to be alert to negative things and then dismissing that part of ourselves in the modern world, we go, oh, you're negative. Or then we classify it as a behavior and we judge and blame it. Okay. So that's the first obstacle. The second obstacle are the beliefs that you've developed based on your personal experiences, perceptions, how you see yourself in relationship to the world, people, places, and things. And then the patterns of thinking or patterns of behavior, which is the codependency, addiction, or some type of avoidant behavior like workaholic, rager. That's the second obstacle. And that is where I'm at right today based on my experience. The third obstacle are any expectations that I have of myself or others. And what I mean by expectations, how they're articulated. An expectation sounds like I should, I have to, I got to. Why am I always? What's wrong with me? How come I never? So when I'm uttering or thinking these expectations, that thing I say I want is still away from me. So those are the barriers. Those are the obstacles. Your experiences, beliefs, perceptions, and patterns of behavior coming from that experiences, and then your expectations. And what I want to do is tell you what I just told you in a different way.
Before you do that,
I would
can I
really
just
like you to do that. Yeah.
yeah, again, I'd just like to emphasize, particularly to those of us that are new and looking at this, that what you're talking about, this is all in our subconscious.
Yes.
So my experiences, my beliefs, my perceptions, the patterns, my expectations, these are all in my subconscious. So when we said at the beginning here that we want to break patterns of behavior, we first have to be able to see them.
Yep.
And again, that's what this work will do for us. It's helped me see how my experiences were in the way. I have to see my beliefs, what they were and how they were in the way, what my perceptions were. Again, you said when you started out that this takes time.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna be able to do all this in a half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there is a process that has not only relief value, but it has the value to create something new
Yes.
out of out of this awareness of what's in my subconscious. Because
Correct.
the good news is that everything in my subconscious is something I have access to through a particular process.
Correct. For
So I
the
just
purpose of healing. Yes.
correct. So I
Right.
just
For the
wanted to
purpose of
emphasize,
reframing.
yeah,
Okay. So um, what I want to do is tell you what I just told you in a different way. Um, what I'm telling everybody right now in this moment, based on your experiences, beliefs, perceptions, held in your subconscious and conscious, that everything in this moment that you think is part of that obstacle because it's coming out of, oops, it's coming out of this. Everything you say is a part of that obstacle because it's coming from what you know right now. And I'm telling you that the obstacles are where you're at right now with what you know and everything you do. So it's everything you think, say, do is part of that obstacle. Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem with the consciousness that created the problem. So I find myself codependent, addicted, or some in some type of avoidant behavior with the most intelligence I can come up with. My total experience and all my decisions led me to this place. That's what I'm telling you. Everything I thought, said, and did ended me up either having a drink, being codependent, fixing people, or going to work, obsessively going to work. And I'm going to add to that list of everything you think, say, do, because I'm also going to include anything that you choose not to think about. Like, oh, I'm not thinking ill of that person right there. As I'm doing, choosing not to think ill, what I want is still away from me. I still haven't embodied, for me, it was inner peace or peace of mind. Everything I choose not to say and I choose not to do. Okay, so Einstein's statement, you cannot solve a problem with the consciousness that created the problem. You must add something new. Well, I'm going to attempt right now in this moment to add something new, to change the total awareness and add something to it. So I'm going to ask everybody, based on what you hear me say, based on this conversation about your experiences, beliefs, and expectations, and that thing I just said about everything you think, say, do, choose not to think, not to say, not to do. Based on what you heard me say, what is the sense in your body? What is the feeling in your body? Now, that feeling, it may be um, accompanied with a thought. Please share the thought, and then we're going to try to go into the corresponding body sensation with whatever that thought was. So I ask people, what are you feeling in your body? And usually I get silence. And then I explain that again about thinking. It may be a thought, then there's a corresponding body sensation. So I get answers like, I'm screwed. Everything I do or don't do, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. Yes, that's the thought. what's the corresponding body sensation? Where do you feel that in your body? And they'll contemplate and then either say in their chest, I got like a tightness in my chest, I got this pit in my stomach. And what I do is simply ask them to notice it, to be with it. Notice the tension in your chest. Take a breath. Nice deep breath. And I say, because I have something I want to tell you. After you notice whatever body sensation you find yourself in, based on what you may consider absurd thing you just heard me say, or incomprehensible thing you just heard me say, or you're trying to figure out an answer to what you heard me say, what's the corresponding feeling in your body? So I get people to do that. I go through 2 or 3 people, and I ask everybody to do the best you can, take a nice deep breath, and I may even say it again. What I'm telling you is that right now in this moment, everything you think, say, do, choose not to think, not to say, not to do, is what's keeping you from having peace of mind, self-confidence, self-love. Nice deep breath. And then people do the best they can to notice their body sensation. And then I say, now that you've done that, I have something really profound to tell you. And I tell them, everything I just told you about everything you think, say, do, choose not to think, not say, not do, is no longer true because you added an experience to your memory. Part of it went into your subconscious, self-nurturing, self-validating. You didn't try to fix yourself. You didn't judge yourself. You didn't say, oh, this is stupid. I feel this in my gut. You simply felt it in your gut. Our memory is held in the form of experience, which are feeling tones, emotional feeling things. And those 2 words, we use those 2 words to describe something that is really happening at the same time. I feel, well, sad is a drop feeling. I feel happy is an up feeling, and you feel it in your body. It's a body sensation. The corresponding feeling, the feeling has a corresponding body sensation or body posture. Now, that is what Einstein, well, he didn't know this, but I'm suggesting to you that that is new. So now you have new information to address where you find yourself. This self-nurturing, self-validating experience is now registered in your subconscious, which means the subconscious has that influence, which means that the information that your decision-making process is drawing on is different, which means the results change automatically. Okay, what's new? In my childhood, I was told, don't cry, don't be a sissy. And I was told if I was angry that I shouldn't be angry, I should be happy. Number 1, I work hard, you should be happy. What do you got to be mad about? Or what do you got to be sad about? I was told that my expressions of excitement and exuberance were irritating as hell. Don't do that. So my life force I saw as something that brought me chastisement, being ostracized, or punishment of some kind. So I learned to shut that down. My emotional body, my emotional feeling body, is my Google map to fulfillment. My 5 senses, see, hear, taste, touch, smell, are survival senses. They keep me, my sight keeps me from bumping my head on low-hanging objects. They're needed for survival. All the information and my capacity to respond in the moment come from those 5. I could see the tiger or I could hear the tiger. The survival response comes from my subconscious, and it's instantaneous and powerful. If I think I'm going to die, I can run really fast. Or if I think there's a threat, I can run without judgment of being weak. I simply run. And that's me being connected to my emotional body. Now, we live in a society where no more saber-tooth tigers. There's been no lions and tigers around. So there's no need for that type of response physically for my physical well-being. In my childhood, if somebody rolled their eyes and then I got chastised or punished or abused or traumatized, that's in there. So I walk into a room of people and somebody raises an eyebrow. And I'm like, what is he doing that for? How come you doing that? I didn't do anything wrong. Or I want to leave, or I want to go punch the guy. Those are reactive responses from a perceived threat. And it's in my subconscious. I want to stop there. This is the beginning of the information I needed to become aware of to consciously and intently address patterns of behavior or concepts of self, like I'm a burden, I'm no good, I'm unworthy, that were automatic in my behavior. The This is an explanation of how I got here, and what we're going to talk about next is how to get out. What do we do to reframe this trauma or heal this trauma so that our behaviors automatically become in alignment with the healing part of us, the part that we heal now, instead of the wounded part of us that's motivating me to move to codependency, for me as alcoholism, or some type of avoidant behavior. So
If I could, thank you very
uh,
much for that. That's great. I thank you. As always, when I listen to you, John, I learn something new. Uh, and one of the things that it occurs to me to share with our audience is that, in essence, the the process that we're doing here is analogous to reprogramming a computer.
yes,
We're in essence reprogramming these patterns. So the patterns, they just happened. For every one of us, every human being goes through the need to create patterns of behavior. It's not, it starts out as a survival mechanism, and then it just becomes a habit that we apply to the everyday challenges of getting through life.
yeah,
Um, and again, you were talking about one of the ways that, or the many ways that these patterns show up, and I was thinking about um, an obstacle that I've experienced in my life is the notion that I can never make more than $100,000 in a year.
right,
And I could think of making 80,000, I could think of making 90,000, but if I tried to think of taking home $120,000, it just, my mind, I could literally feel my body pushing against it.